Okay, so welcome to the A2P Psychology of Sport video on arousal. Today we're going to be looking at the signs of arousal. We're also going to be looking at the different theories of arousal, and finally we're going to finish off by looking at the impact of arousal on sporting performance. Okay, so in the exam you could be asked to name the different signs of arousal, and what you're going to do is split them or break them down into physiological signs, which is also termed as somatic signs of arousal, and then we've got psychological, which are cognitive signs of arousal. Okay, so unless this comes up on a 14 marker, you're only going to really need to know 4 or 5 of these, but we'll list them all. So somatic signs of arousal, we're going to start off with increased heart rate. Just going to put increased heart rate there. Then we've got increased breathing rate, and these are pretty self-explanatory. We've got sweating, headache, butterflies in your stomach, nausea, muscle tension, dry mouth, dazed look about you, okay, there are a couple that are not so easy to spot, so that is increased blood pressure. Obviously we know that happens, but you're not going to be able to see that as a sign just by looking at someone. Galvanic skin response, so that's the electrical resistance of the skin. So galvanic skin response. Now we're going to be better, or our skin will be better at conducting electricity because we'll start sweating when we experience higher levels of arousal. And the final one is increased levels of hormones. And the obvious one is there that's going to occur there is adrenaline. Okay, with cognitive signs of arousal, there are positive and negative. So let's go with the positive first. We've got increased focus and concentration. Okay, next one is heightened awareness. Heightened awareness of important cues. Okay, so we can pay more attention, or pay better attention, or pick up important stimuli better. So narrowing of attention, including irrelevant stimuli. So our attentional field may narrow. Okay, and we'll have a decreased reaction time. So because we're paying so much attention and because we're so focused, our reaction time could decrease. Now, we're then going to go and list the negative aspects. So we've got anxiety and apprehension. So that leads to feelings of worry, tension, negative self-talk, so doubting yourself, I can't do this. We can't beat this team, they're too good for us. Sleep difficulties. Fear, anger, and the inability to concentrate. So we've got fear, anger, and a lack, and I'll just put it over here, lack of concentration. So they're the negative effects. Cognitive. Okay, so the first theory of arousal is Hull's drive theory. Hull, and it's called drive theory. Okay, so things that are going to get us a mark in the exam, we need to say that there is a linear relationship between arousal and performance. So as arousal increases, so does our performance level. Now Hull went on to say that under high levels of arousal, we are likely to bring out our dominant response. Now the dominant response is the one that is most likely to occur or that has been practiced the most. So, or where the SR bond is strongest. So, for an expert, the dominant response is going to be the correct one, or often the correct response, because their SR bond is nice and strong. So they've practiced this technique, and when they perform under high levels of arousal, they perform better, generally, or according to Hull. Now, a beginner or a novice, because their most likely response is going to be the incorrect one, their dominant response is going to be the incorrect response, because the bond that is strongest, or the thing that occurs most when they practice, is the incorrect response. So their SR bond is weak, which means, or weak for the correct skill, which means that they are likely to perform worse, or performance would deteriorate under high levels of arousal. Okay, so inverted U theory was developed by Yerkes and Dodson, because Hull's drive theory was seen to have too many flaws. So Yerkes and Dodson came up with the inverted U theory, and they said something similar, that as arousal increases, so does performance, but it does that up to an optimal point. Okay, and after that optimal point, which occurs usually at the midpoint or under moderate levels of arousal, performance will deteriorate. Okay. Now, that seems like a fairly decent explanation of how arousal works, but then some flaws were highlighted. So beginners and experts perform better under different levels of arousal. So we then had to develop this theory slightly. So it was then proposed that beginners perform better under lower levels of arousal, and intermediates, or people in the associative phase, perform better under moderate levels of arousal, and experts will perform better under higher levels of arousal, or people in the autonomous phase, if you remember that from AS. Now, there are several reasons for this. The first one would be that beginners haven't got that development of the SR bond or that level of experience. So we have experts who have got skills that have been better grooved or overlearned. Okay, which means that they can access, or their processing of information is quicker. And that would be our second point. So they can process, I'm just going to put there experts, they can process information quicker, and they've got more experiences to draw upon, so their schema is more developed, more experiences to draw upon. And finally, experts will their selective attention, their selective attention can still operate effectively under higher levels of arousal, whereas a beginner will miss certain cues, or their perceptual field will be so narrow that they will miss the cues that they should be paying attention to. Okay, I'm just going to make this a bit smaller, because the final thing that I want to just discuss is that the type of skill will also have an influence on the optimum level. So, a gross or simple skill will be performed better under higher levels of arousal. Now, the classic example of that is an athlete, so a thrower. Now, we've all seen it at the Olympics, the throwers, the jumpers who are performing gross and pretty simple skills are getting the crowd going, trying to raise their own levels of arousal to perform better, and because they will perform better under high levels of arousal. Whereas someone like a shooter or an archer will need lower levels of arousal to perform better, because they're performing a more complex or fine skill.